sir.
The August 8th, 2012 meeting of the Missouri City Planning and Zoning Commission is called to order. We have a quorum tonight. Nancy, have you got listed who's missing?
Pardon?
Have you listed who's missing? Okay, moving on to agenda item number 3, election of officers. Consideration of an action on the nomination and election of chairman and vice chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
I make a motion that we re-elect Commissioner Ron Lee and Commissioner Sonia Brown Marshall as chairman and vice chairman.
A second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on that? Anyone? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Okay, that motion carries. I would like to say I appreciate your vote of confidence and so forth in us, and it's an honor and a privilege to serve in that capacity. And I know Sonia says the same thing, right?
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Moving on, agenda item number 4, the minutes from the July 11, 2012 meeting. Is there a motion that we approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on those minutes? All right, hearing none. All those in favor? Those opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved as presented. Section 5, reports. I don't have any report for tonight. Do any of the commissioners have any reports?
No report.
Anyone? Okay. Moving on, agenda item number 6, staff reports. Director of Development Services.
No report.
A report. Planning representative.
Excuse me. I did want to point the commissioner's attention to, I hope everyone received an email from Planners Web this week. If you remember the Planning Commissioner's Journal that you used to receive in your packets, it's now an online publication. Same articles, they have archives of all the articles that were in the previous journals. Excuse me. So you all should have received your username and your password in your email, so please check your emails, check your junk boxes, because I know one of the emails went to my junk box, but please check that. It's a really good resource. Lots of articles on being a planning commissioner and zoning and platting and all kinds of issues from around the country and around the world, really, from other planning commissioners and elected and appointed officials. So it's a really good tool, really good resource. If you don't have your username or password, let us know, and we will see what's going on with it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Public Works, Scott? Oh,
No reports.
no report. Okay, moving on, agenda item number 7, public comments. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to step to the podium and address anything which is not on our agenda for tonight? Please be our guest. But there will be no questions answered by any of the commissioners, nor will the commissioners make any comments about anything, because that's the law here in the state of Texas. So anybody? All right, seeing none, moving on, agenda item number 8, the consent agenda. 8A, consider approval of a preliminary plat for Taylor Woods Patio Homes. 8B, consider approval of a preliminary plat for Grand Park Center. 8C, consider approval of a preliminary plat for crossing at Sienna Ranch Reserve B-3. 8D, consider approval of a final plat for the orchard at Riverstone Section 3. 8E, consider approval of a final plat for Minimax. 8F, consider approval of a final plat for Sienna Village of Bees Creek Section 8. 8G, consider approval of a final plat for Sienna Village of Bees Creek Section 11. 8H, consider approval of a final plat for Sienna Village of Bees Creek Section 12. And 8I, consider approval of a final plat for Sienna Village of Bees Creek Section 19. Is there a motion?
Make a motion we approve the consent agenda.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Okay, the consent agenda is approved as presented. Agenda item 9, public hearing in consideration of a final replat for replat of Reserve C of replat of Lowe's at Missouri City. Man, that's a mouthful. Okay, 9A, same thing, replat of Reserve C of replat of Lowe's at Missouri City.
Why is a plat a public hearing?
Joyce, would you like to answer that?
Statute requires when there's a replat, that there be a public hearing held on the replat.
Okay. Just puzzling.
Okay, go on.
Sure. This is essentially Reserve C, which has been platted numerous times. At this time, they're looking to take that reserve and divide it into 2 reserves.
Right.
One of those, there is a proposed restaurant that is looking to move into that spot. You should be seeing an amendment to the existing plan development district for that area next month on the agenda. So at this point, there's not much else to share. They have a few deficiencies that they'll need to correct with staff before they can go ahead and get it recorded and everything. But there's no major issues.
Right. Okay, is anybody here from Lowe's? Any comment? All right, as this is a public hearing, is there anyone in the audience that would like to step to the podium and address this particular item? Anyone? All right, do I
Make
hear
a motion, we close the public hearing.
Second to that? All right, it's been moved and seconded that we close the public hearing. All those in favor? Those opposed? All right, the public hearing is closed.
Make a motion, we submit this to City Council with a positive, or I guess we just approve it, right?
Yes, sir.
Approve it.
Yeah.
Approve this replat.
The final replat.
Yes.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second to that? All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on that item? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Okay, that's carried. If you'll notice on agenda item number 9, there under the recommendations from the staff, it says final plat as opposed to replat. And I think that's been corrected, hasn't it, Jennifer?
It is a replat.
Okay. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 10, public hearing and consideration of a final replat for Brightwater Center Section 1 Reserve A-2 replat.
And this is another replat, the Brightwater Center off of 1092 and Cartwright. This is the Huntington project that you saw as a planned development district late last year, the senior retirement community, and this is a replat just to create the boundary line between the property that the Huntington is purchasing and the remainder of the commercial property.
Okay, is there anybody from Brightwater here would like to make a comment?
We have no comment, but we'll... Sorry, Lawrence Turner with Kelly Kaluza and Associates. I'm here on behalf of the project, and we have no comments, but we will entertain any questions that the commission may have. We'll make sure we try to address them.
Okay, any questions? Okay, thank you, Lawrence.
Yes, sir.
Okay, moving on. I know. As it's a public hearing here, is anybody in the audience that would like to address this project?
Make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Second. Second. All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Those opposed?
Make a motion, we approve this final replat.
Second. Second.
If I could add one thing for the commission. There was a comment that I don't believe actually got on the staff comments that should be on there. And that's the requirement for the TIA that was submitted for this tract to include the entire property on that. And we would ask that that comment be added to the staff comments.
Amend my motion. to include that comment.
I
Okay.
second that.
Is there a second to that?
Yes.
All right, all those in favor? Those opposed? Okay, that takes care of item 10. Item 11, consideration of the adoption of a recommendation to City Council regarding a park line dedication, a proposal for the Huntington.
And this is the Parks Board recommendation for the same project that was just the subject of the replat, and the Parks Board is recommending accepting the applicant's proposal of money in lieu of an actual parkland dedication, and the total amount would be $144,000 into Park Zone number 6, which is where the Huntington property is located within.
Right. Have you got any comment, Lawrence?
We did go through the process and from the Parks Board standpoint, we thought it was a very good deal with the senior living facility donating the money in lieu of land. The center will still be providing amenities for the residents in that community, but it just made it a lot cleaner for them. And that park zone can use those funds as well.
Yes. No question about that.
Make a motion, we submit this to the City Council with a positive
I
recommendation.
second the motion.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on 11A? Hearing none, all those in favor? Those opposed? Okay, 11A is approved. 12, consideration of the adoption of a proposed amendment. A, consideration of an adoption of a recommendation to City Council regarding a proposed amendment to the Sienna Plantation Joint Development Agreement. The proposed agreement is for the purpose of modifying the Land Use Plan Exhibit D-1C to accurately reflect the land uses previously constructed and the relocation of future land uses in tracts D and F. Tracts D and F are located in Sienna North area and includes approximately 242.8 acres and 1,954 acres respectively along the Fort Bend Parkway extending south to the levee easement.
This is a request to amend. This would be the 7th amendment to the Sienna Development Agreement. You saw the 6th amendment earlier this year, and it was also for relocation of some uses. This is, again, around the proposed toll road. This is the map that you should have in your agenda packets. Relocation of some of the multifamily allotments to this tract here. And then also some reductions in this area along the future toll road. And this also reflects some of the plots that you've seen over the last few months, specifically Sienna Village of Bees Creek, their roadway network, and the single-family home development that they're planning, and also Pecan Estates, the subdivision that would be on this side of the toll road.
Okay, any discussion on this item?
Can we say?
Anyone? Okay, do I hear a
Make a
motion?
motion, we submit this to the City Council with a positive recommendation.
All right. Is there a second to that?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on 12A? Hearing none, all those in favor? Those opposed? Okay, moving on, agenda item number 13 is a public hearing in consideration for a zoning text amendment, hotels/motels. Public hearing to receive comments for or against proposed amendments to the city's architectural standards relating to the hotels and motels.
Commissioners, since we are beginning to develop, we have the second hotel in the works here in Missouri City. There's been suggestions that we should have appropriate regulations to assure the quality of the hotels that are built here. It's one of those things, once you touch it, it just gets bigger. It seemed like a real simple thing to do, try to get the architectural standards for hotels to be very similar to the architectural standards for apartments. But as we do that, we add another section, so you get a whole lot here where we're just changing a letter here and there because we wound up renumbering things. If you get to page 6, in the report, you will see the significant changes, and they're very similar to the information or to the requirements that we have for apartments. Primarily, what you will see is we will not allow access to guest rooms from the outside of the building, must be from interior hallways. The stairs, hallways, and elevators must be located interior. So you won't have the balcony and the people hanging out on the balcony. We've heard complaints about that and how it impacts the hotels in other cities. Otherwise, substantially the same rules that we expect to see, the 50% of the exterior architectural masonry units, brick or stone. Long expanses of the building are to be avoided, so there's some kind of articulation. A pitched roof requirement, if they have a parking garage, it does not have a pitched roof requirement. And screening the outdoor service and delivery areas and outdoor recreation areas from public view. We believe that will bring us the quality development that we desire, that La Quinta has brought to us, that Hampton Inn is proposing to bring to us. These rules don't change their plans. That fits neatly with what they're doing. There will be other rules, but they will not be in the zoning ordinance. They'll be in another chapter of the Code of Ordinances, and therefore they're not coming to you for review or approval. You're not required to approve it. The police department is working closely on those to make sure we have the appropriate rules to assure security and maintain the quality of life in Missouri City, even with hotels.
Right. We're, somewhere in the future, maybe, a hotels or a motel's going to come in with a swimming pool. Will that make any difference?
They can have the swimming pool. They need to screen it from view from a public street. We prefer them to be in the back, not out on the edge of Highway 6. I remember traveling with my family when I was very young out to California, and of course the big thing was the swimming pool out by the highway to attract people in. Well, that doesn't attract people to the hotel or motel any longer. So we want that to be handled tastefully and appropriately.
So we would require it internally?
No, it can be outside. It just needs to be screened.
Okay.
And that can be by hedge.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I didn't see on here was, what if the hotel has a restaurant? Would that be separate architectural view or something, food for thought?
I don't think we would draw a distinction. We'd want the unit to be unified.
I got you.
So that there would be one appearance for it. If it's a freestanding restaurant, then certainly it would go by the rules that we currently have for such establishments.
But we're not going to require anything if they want to incorporate it into their hotel as a functionality? Okay.
No.
What I was thinking of is I've seen hotels where I had an adjacent, it was attached, but it was just an adjacent building next to it, and that's where they housed their restaurant. Or if there's one structure and it was interior to that structure, it's not visible, you wouldn't know necessarily that it's there. I was imagining if something was attached.
And if it's attached, these architectural standards should not have a negative effect on the restaurant.
Thank you.
Any points on pets? Any pets that guests may bring along? If you want to place any guidelines on that?
We're not going to deal with that under the zoning ordinance. That might be regulated in another chapter of the Code of Ordinances.
Okay, any further discussion? Do I hear a motion that we approve the final report? Oh, you're right. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to step to the podium and address this item, as it is a public hearing? All right, hearing none.
Make a motion, we close the public hearing.
A second?
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Those opposed? Okay, going
Make a
back.
motion, we submit this to City Council with a, well, do we do this to the City Council?
Final
on this
report.
one?
It's a positive with a
with a positive recommendation.
Put your name in the paper.
Okay, second to that?
I second it.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion on that item?
Friday.
Anyone? Hearing none? Any further discussion?
I'm sorry.
Okay, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Okay, agenda item number 13 is approved. 14 is a public hearing and consideration for a zoning text amendment noticing requirements. 14A, public hearing to receive comments for or against proposed amendments to the noticing requirements for zoning map amendments and zoning text amendments.
We had previously brought this to you, and last month we discussed the process by which amendments and your input on amendments would be sought, starting with, as you will find on vehicle signs, a general discussion from you. Next will be a preliminary report with a public hearing, and finally, a final report with a public hearing, so that we can get it, and we can get it right, and we can have it saying what you want it to say. We do that on zoning text amendments. On zoning map amendments, we move a little more speedily through the process because it's not just the terms of the regulations, it's somebody's investment that's involved. And we have established that we provide the notice that's required by state law for your public hearing, and then we schedule the public hearing before City Council on the zoning map amendment. It started out to be one of those really simple things we just want to do, but by the time we got through, you can see it didn't look all that simple. It's really not this bad. It's really fairly simple if you go to the black letter of it. It's not nearly as bad. But to fix it, to separate it out, to make sure we have everything lined up as state law requires us to do it, and as your practice and procedure wants it done, we recommend these changes.
Okay.
I didn't have a problem with any of the changes.
Anyone have a problem with it?
Made it more straightforward, I think.
It was
public hearing.
very straightforward.
This is a public hearing, right?
All right, yes. As this is a public hearing, anybody in the audience that would like to step to the podium and address this agenda item? Hearing none, is there a
Make
motion?
a motion, we close the public hearing.
Second to that?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Raise your right hand. Those opposed? Okay. Moving on here, do I hear a
Make a
motion?
motion, we submit the city council with a positive recommendation.
Final report.
Final report.
Okay.
Positive.
Second?
All right, it's been moved, all right, it's been seconded. Any further discussion on the item at all? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Okay, 14 is approved as such. All right, moving on, agenda item number 15, vehicle signs, section 13.
Requires me to move. I apologize, I didn't bring an easel, so you get cheap easels. Okay, pieces don't need to move.
Flashbacks.
Oh.
Turn it right side. As you are aware, City Council acted on the new sign ordinance that y'all worked for how many months on? More than I can remember right now.
18, I think.
And the one thing they didn't handle, vehicle signs or business signs on vehicles. We shortcut it down to vehicle signs. They asked us to go to the HOA, citywide HOA board meeting. Two of the commissioners were at the meeting, and so y'all were already bored by this. We prepared a survey sheet, and we explained you have different kinds of vehicles, you have different kinds of signs on vehicles, and going through all that, what does the community want? And we had it so we could move the vehicles around and where they were parked. We could put them in the grass. People didn't like that. Passenger vehicles, vans, box trucks, and trailers. So we have that. And where should they park was basically the question. So I'm not too sure we made it abundantly clear. I was also concerned by the end of the meeting that maybe they weren't used to us asking blank, what do you think? And they kept asking, what are you trying to do? I said, I'm trying to find out what you think. And that was kind of an unusual situation. But we started with a blank slate. What do you want? What do you think? We posed the questions. You have them on the survey results. First statement, I don't mind seeing from public streets signs that have been placed on vehicles and trailers. And 10 people said none. 15 said, I don't mind seeing them on passenger cars. 13 said, don't mind seeing them on delivery vans. 3, don't mind seeing them on box trucks. Nobody wants to see them on trailers, apparently. And 13, don't mind seeing them on all the vehicles. When I get through with all these results, I really came to one conclusion. There are 5 people who don't care where you put a vehicle with a sign on it. They're very clear. There are a few comments you could see at the bottom of the page where some people say if it sits still and stays still, if it's used as a sign, it's a sign, shouldn't be allowed. And other one said, you don't need to be bothering us with this. Y'all, this isn't important. But then we ask, what about parking it to the front of the business? 10 said none. 15 said the passenger cars are okay in front of the business. 16 said delivery vans are. 3 said box trucks are. 7 said trailers are. And 10 said you can put them all out there. To the side of the business, 11 none, 7 for passenger cars, 10 for delivery vans, 5 for box trucks, 3 for trailers, and 15 said all of them can be to the side. Then to the rear, it shifted a little bit. I'm not too sure why none, but passenger cars to the rear, 4, 5 for delivery vans, 8 for box trucks, 9 for trailers, and 19 people said all of them should be to the rear. Then we said, what if it's parked on another business property, not where the business advertised on the side of the vehicle is located? And we got a pretty resounding 30 out of 46 said none should be parked on other property. And there's where you find the 5. That's why I have confidence 5 are pretty clear, you can park them wherever you want. Another thing we got in conversation was I'd rather see them parked at the business location than in the neighborhood. Made sense to me. So, here's where we start. What kind of vehicle, where? Should there be something about the size of the signage? We even have a suggestion from one of the council members who is suggesting that annually vehicles with business signs on them register, and we establish rules on where that vehicle that is registered can be parked, and then we know where it's supposed to be parked. We have the plan for it, and we can find out if it's parked in the right place. Nobody wanted to penalize a vehicle that was in active business use at the time. It's being loaded or unloaded. Well, people are getting into it or out of it. When it's actively used, they did not want to restrict where it was because it needs to be used that way. 18-wheelers, we want them unloading in the back. Make that clear. The big trucks. We're talking about generally these 4 types of vehicles. So we're throwing it back to you. See what y'all say. And you may tell me that you've talked about it for months.
The comments that were added, was it limited to just those 4 comments, or were there multiple people that made the same comments?
These are the 4 comments that were found added to the bottom of the survey form. I think we had, Jennifer, help me, what was it, 76 surveys passed out, something like that. Maybe it was 60-something, but we got 46 back. So there are some that never came back in. But these 4, and one of them, one of the participants even signed it for me.
Just as a question, some, like insurance companies and things of that nature, give their people cars. And of course, they are not a little sign on the side. They're generally, you know, a fully decal type car.
We have the real estate agent, now I'll point toward the commissioner that's not here, type magnetic sign or decal on the sign. We have even down to Mary Kay stickers in back windows. Those are business signs in cars. I don't know that we're concerned about a Mary Kay sticker in a car. We have wrapped vehicles. What I kind of take from this survey is that generally the HOA board members did not have a problem with wrapped vehicles at business locations.
Wrapped vehicles.
That's where the, goes all the way around the vehicle.
But they
But
did have
passenger cars,
But they did have a problem with signs on the side of the vehicle.
no. They had more problems with trailers and box trucks.
Okay.
And the plumber's van with the plumber's name. Remember, sometimes we tell people they have to put their name on the side of the vehicle and their license number and their address. Sometimes they're required to do it by law. Okay, where do they need to park that vehicle while they're doing it? A wrapped vehicle. We picked a yellow Volkswagen, but the city attorney's not here to make fun of right now. She's probably back in her office working. Then we have the plumber in the van. And then over on the far side, we have the trailers that you may have seen around town and the what we call box trucks.
Okay, so the question is primarily geared to where can they park the vehicles at businesses?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's, if they go to, if Jack's Plumbing, Jack Wood's Plumbing goes to such and such a business and he's there doing work, that's okay.
We're not dealing with him. He's actively engaged.
He's actively working.
So it's more about when he goes back to his place of business, he parks that
Park.
Where do you store the vehicle?
Or he's home,
in front of it.
The home is separate.
Could be home.
because a lot of them now, the smaller guys, their business is at their home. They like that, but they...
As long as they comply with our home occupation rules and they don't do outside advertising, they don't store things outside, they don't bring customers in, they don't increase the traffic, and they only have one vehicle that's marked.
Yeah, okay,
And I
gotcha.
think I've caught most everything. But primarily, when it's back at the place of business, when it's stored, and even perhaps make the distinction, stored during the day, stored during the night. Not in active use. Should it be behind the building?
Is there a time element on it? I'll bring that up. For instance, I'm just picking one, just saying, okay, HEB's got a van, and it's got a lot of advertisement on it. And they are doing a special promotional deal. And so the van is there for 3 or 4 days. Are we concerned? Now, the van is doing business at HEB of some sort. It's delivering people, or maybe they just leave it there. I can see that happening at some point where they would leave it there. I'm just only throwing this out because that may be one of those deals that sticking out there and somebody will say, oh, well, we're going to cite him.
Let's pick on our favorite Chick-fil-A van.
Yeah, good one.
and had a conversation with the city manager this afternoon, and I've never noticed the Chick-fil-A van. I've seen pictures of it, but I've never noticed it.
It is true. I haven't either.
And in talking to the city manager, and legal may have a heart attack behind me, but what I think we're trying to address is aesthetics and dealing with the one that sticks out like the sore thumb, not those that are parked someplace where you don't notice them.
Well, let me ask you this. Could we maybe consider doing something based on
size? If it's of a more leaning towards that way over there on those sides. If it's large, then maybe it should be at the back of the business. And I think they all should register though, and pay a registration fee. We don't really have billboards or advertising, if you will, in the city, but they are using this as a form of that, and if they want to leave them out there, they need to pay some form of advertisement.
And to play devil's advocate, if, I'll get ahead of somebody on the commission. If I have a private business, and I have to buy a vehicle, I'm probably going to put my name on the side of it somehow. And that's fine.
I agree.
There's not a problem with that. I don't mind seeing the big HEB trucks, pick on them for a while. But when they're at the business, they don't park out in the front parking lot. They park behind the building to load and unload.
So that would take care of size, because those would be in the rear. But, okay, let's go to our gold truck.
Our what?
Gold truck.
Gold truck.
The gold box truck.
That's out in front of the...
And it's still there. So, and I know you don't want to charge them a fee for their advertising, okay, but...
We just want to make them move it.
We just want to make them move it. I mean, I don't know what you want me to say.
I just want you to speak what you think.
Size in the back. If it's just large, I think they need to be parked in the back. Aesthetically, I can't see over those trucks anyway.
Well, I think also, Commissioner, that you have to realize that there better be room in the back.
Well, if not, they don't need to have it there.
No. Now you're regulating business as to what they should have and what they shouldn't
We're
have.
doing that anyway.
No, we're setting standards for them. We're not regulating their business. Setting standards are worry me a little bit when we start saying, no, you can't have that truck.
Yeah, I would say that we separate passenger vehicles and vans and from trailers and box trucks.
That's size.
I think that would be a good kind of natural separation first.
I have to agree with that.
And then, just like you said, the Chick-fil-A van, nobody notices it, right? But everybody notices that box truck with the gold sign on it. Okay. Now, we're so used to it now, we probably don't notice it anymore. But I think, you know, and I don't know if trailers...
I think some people still notice it.
Yeah, I don't know if trailers are a big problem or not. I mean, I can't recall seeing a lot of trailers, you know, like that landscape trailer, sitting out in front of businesses or anything like that.
Catfish Willie's?
You could have a caterer, you know what I mean? This guy could have...
Probably working it.
Yep.
Yeah,
Right.
but I mean, where would he park it if he put advertisement on it? Let's assume that we got the barbecue place over in Town Center, okay? Just picking him out, and he says, I'm going to start catering. So he gets that little white trailer right there, and he starts putting all kinds of stuff on it for his catering, but he didn't take it home.
He needs to park it in the back.
There is hardly any back to that whole thing. That's what I'm saying. It gets a little difficult because I see what you're saying. We'd like to have it, don't put it there. But unfortunately...
Well, you know, I don't know. I mean, I guess, you know, I guess my belief is that he probably doesn't want to park that in front of his business and take up parking spaces and just have that, right? I mean, he probably puts his sign on it more because when he's catering somewhere,
That's
he
right.
wants people to see it.
That's right.
Not as much that he wants it to draw people to his business.
That may be true, but he brought up a valid point, Catfish Willie's. This guy has had a trailer sitting out there for years.
Yeah, I mean, he
He's
is.
not using
yeah,
it.
He's not.
So-
And what they'll do is, in the case you just mentioned, where he wouldn't use a parking place in front, that's a shopping center. So what he does is, I mean, if I was him, I'd park it about 2 spaces back, still get my advertisement, okay? I'm just trying to throw out the situation. Also, I wanted to point out that there's dadgum, I wish I could think of the name of that restaurant. It's a new restaurant that came in that's at, where the, wasn't Blockbusters, but it was some other movie center was, on Highway 6 and almost to Dulles. You understand which restaurant I'm talking about? It's
Fuzzies?
Fuzzies, that's it,
Okay.
yeah. I noticed there that they had 3 trucks, I think, pickups, that were in their colors with their logos all over. It's probably a franchise, and they like to have that vehicle, and there it is. It's parked there.
I understand there's a Fuzzy Pizza also, so Fuzzy is a franchise.
Yeah.
I think we're at size, you know.
Well, let me add this.
Oh, yeah,
Let me
come
add
on.
this. Looking at, from the HOA meeting, percentage-wise, it looks like this is where everybody envisions where they see a vehicle that's marked unloading or beside. I mean, the answers reflect that. It's where you would normally expect to see something, going back to your Chick-fil-A van example. However, what I think we're really talking about is obstruction of views. If we have the eyesore and aesthetics of the van or the big truck or the thing hasn't been going, that's actually interfering with the view from the street and then into the shopping area or whatever. I mean, I like the idea of separating by size and, van and trailers, or separating that way, but I think it's also placement of the vehicles that is obstructing. If you have the big truck there, you're blocking the view into the whole parking lot of the shopping center.
I agree.
So it's kind of an obstruction might be a word we might be able to use to address this challenge.
I like that.
What about,
It gets back to the usage too, though, right? I mean, you said something about this place that has a trailer that's been there for years. Obviously, they're not using it if it's just been sitting there, right?
Those two, yes, sir.
is there a way one can restrict the size, like one does on the windows, shop windows? We can restrict the size saying plain surface not more than X percentage of the open space. Just an option. We cannot regulate saying you cannot have it, but we can say that if it goes beyond this size, then you're using your vehicle as an vehicle for advertisement. But let's say you're a realtor and merely have your realtor name or something, it's merely carrying. Is that something one can explore?
I think so.
Well, let's say that I just have a vehicle and it's white. No advertisement, just white. And I park it out in front all the time.
Are you talking about the police department?
Probably.
I just thought I'd throw that out there.
I'm just pointing out that it could be, you could just have a white vehicle or a blue vehicle or a green vehicle parked out there, and, the guy gets around the program then. No signage on my vehicle. It's just white as it can be.
Isn't there a city ordinance where you tag the vehicle if it hasn't moved in 2 months? You need to take care of it?
Not in a business area.
I'm going to give you another example.
That's a good point.
The reason why- I'm
I
sorry.
was going to suggest that Commissioner McCray, if you have a large white vehicle that you're parking in the parking lot, you're probably parking it in front of your competitor's business to take up their parking spaces, so it's more convenient to shop at your place.
Absolutely.
And if you think, that was a fight we had in Galveston, in the downtown area because people would intentionally block the competitor.
I guess there's a place going up towards Texas City, and I pass by there from time to time, and I promise they probably have about 15 little navy blue Molly-made cars all in a row. But they're really small, and that goes back to that obstruction of view. And I get it. That's probably their headquarters. Maybe that's where they office out of. But I don't know how I would feel about 15 box trucks being parked on the same row. Just don't know.
Would you
think
be
it's
opposed to
scary.
15 Molly Maids parked out?
I probably would.
Yeah,
You're talking about volume now, yep, numbers.
because
I think it depends on where.
IRS regulations now are a little bit different than they used to be. You could take a vehicle and take it home, but if you did, they had to charge you something. Now they have to charge you something for doing that. So a lot of, and we had service guys who loved our trucks until we said, wait a minute,
I mean, now that we're
you're
talking
going to pay
about
for
this,
that.
I'm even looking at the metro, the little metro, they look
Van?
like minivans,
Yeah.
but, and they park them everywhere because they use them the next day to take people to their destinations. So would that be included in this?
We have exempted governmental entities and
okay.
governmental activity.
What happens if it's private?
Yeah, that's true. Even under metro. it'd be
And the
private.
example I would cite to that, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the city of Denton. You have a chance to go to Denton. If you've been there, you know what I'm fixing to talk about right now. The name escaped me. Frenchie's. It's not chicken. It's it's lawn mowing. Orange trucks everywhere.
Wow.
Every intersection is a Frenchie's truck. It's a sign. It's a bunch of signs.
Let me say this to you. I think you can talk and discuss about this all day and then some, and you're not ever going to get really to where you truly want to be or where everybody agrees. But it looks to me like that whatever we do, number one, needs to be sensible and reasonable. If it's reasonable, there's a reason why it needs to be there, and really nobody should say anything about it unless it's just blocking the view of people or whatever the case may be, where you can't see inside a particular area. I don't think you can have something like that. Everything that you can get to the rear, you get to the rear. Everything. Whether it's a big truck, a trailer, or whatever, you get everything back there that you can. This gold truck out here on Highway 6, if that was a brand-new vehicle, shining and sharp and so forth like that, sure, it would be noticeable, but there wouldn't be near as many comments about that probably, because it was a good-looking vehicle and somebody had paid a bunch of bucks for it. But as long as we can come up with something that is practical with all this, and looking at it from the standpoint of what you were talking about, that we don't obstruct the views and so forth like that, then if a business is out there and that business needs to have a vehicle or two, I don't think we want to make them go take it somewhere else or something like that. As long as they park it where it's not disturbing anything, then let them put a vehicle or two in the parking lot. Now, if we're talking about a dozen, then that's another thing. Obviously, we can't do that, just like the orange trucks. But I think you've got to be reasonable with the people that are trying to do business there. They own a business, etc. And if you run them off and tell them they got to take that somewhere else, or they can't have any advertisement on the vehicle or something, you're going to create a problem that you can't solve.
So I guess maybe we'd be looking at obstruction and limiting the number.
That's right.
Now, is that okay?
I think
I'm not telling them what they can do.
The results of the survey
Tell them what they can do.
are kind of show the flavor of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all over the place. The only one that pops out, of course, is the one that says, don't park it in somebody else's
Yeah,
business,
the
right?
30, that one made sense.
And I really, the reason I ask about the comments is because the last two comments are very telling. It's like, and I think it goes with the results of the survey. It's like, in general, most people don't think this is a problem.
That's right.
With all good humor, one of those comments, with one of them, I was told before the comment was written and put back in the box. And it's from a dear friend who is always willing to express opinion. Okay, I take it my suggestion that I haven't made is that we could help foster other businesses if we don't allow them to be parked at the premise, or we put restrictions where they could be stored someplace else. But the closest storage place I know happens to be outside the city limits, so it really wouldn't help us any to foster that business.
No.
But out by the toll road off of McCard, there is a vehicle storage place. But doesn't make it convenient for the person to use. So what I'm hearing, limitation on the number of vehicles. What about at night? If you have 15 Mary Maids or 15 vans parked in a lot at night, but they leave every morning and go about the business and scatter all over the area, are we concerned about them at night? Point was made at the HOA meeting that much rather see them parked in that commercial parking lot at night than they would rather see 15 of them scattered throughout the neighborhoods at night. But if we have that, we're going to have 15 other vehicles parked or something akin to that, parked in that shopping center during the day because they have to get to where their vehicle is to go to work.
That's right.
Well, you mentioned at nighttime like that, depending upon what type of business that you're dealing with, if it's AT&T and they need a dozen trucks out there, and those trucks are gonna be gone the first thing in the morning, and based on what AT&T brings to your city, I don't think you wanna tell them, no, you can't do that. Now, if the trucks are gigantic or something like that, then that's a different thing. That's not reasonable.
And we already have the rules over, 9,000 gross carrying weight? So we have that rule in place.
Right.
These are the smaller vehicles,
I think it's also between the landlord and the business owner, what trucks he can park through the night.
And
It's that relationship which comes into play.
that is very important to recognize that the landlord may put more strict rules in place than we would ever dream of putting in place.
Because I do know in Hillcroft, a friend of mine owns a restaurant, and any vehicles that he parks which are not pre-authorized, he has them towed away at 1 in the morning. He has a towman who goes specifically at 1 in the morning, and he looks at the stickers, and all the vehicles which are not authorized, he has them towed away at 1 in the morning.
We will endeavor to capture your thoughts in regulations and bring it back to you.
Good.
Thank you. Good.
We may miss by a wide mark, but we'll try.
I think the time
Did we
frame-
contribute anything?
Always.
For the politician.
Okay. All right, is everybody satisfied with that right now?
Yeah, I do it.
Anybody have any more discussion about it?
Nope.
Okay. Okay, moving on to
Item 16.
agenda item number 16, the Planning and Zoning Commission Rules of Procedure.
Commissioners, on July 16th, the City Council did vote to approve and adopt the rules that you proposed. At that meeting, the Legal Division did also propose an amendment to the rules, and that amendment was to strike Section 503 of your rules relating to the filing deadline. That specific provision, upon further consideration, legal determined that that specific provision was not or should not have been placed necessarily in the Planning and Zoning Commission's rules, as it related more specifically to an application that would be submitted to a staff, specifically the director, and not to the commission. Therefore, after some discussion, Commissioner Lee was present at that meeting, but after some discussion, the City Council did vote to approve and adopt your rules, but with that amendment as well, so striking that section. And I've placed just the page, a changes mark showing the section that has been struck from your rules.
Let me talk a little bit about this. I'm really the reason why that item number 16 is back on this agenda here for tonight, and to discuss the deletion of section 503. Looking at the rules themselves, I don't think that any of us up here would disagree with that. Really and truly, 503 does not belong, or we don't need it in the rules. That 503 can be taken out of there. Our problem, and I know my problem, was the fact that the document that we approved and thought that was going forward to the City Council for them to do whatever they so desired, that recommendation was made after we had approved that document, which, as the mayor said that night, we were circumventing the Planning and Zoning Commission in doing that. Anything that needs to be approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission, if there are changes or whatever that need to be made to that, after we've worked with it or whatever the case may be, that recommendation needs to come back to the Planning and Zoning Commission prior to going to the City Council, so that when it goes to the City Council, it's got our approval for everything that's going up there.
As is, yeah.
As opposed to it going part way, stopping, and then there's a recommendation to knock something out of it. I think that's where the main issue came in, and I think that's the reason why that the mayor said what he said. And quote, unquote, we will not do this again.
Certainly, and the intent was not to circumvent the commission at all. Something came up, an issue came up, and in an attempt to resolve that, we decided to make that recommendation at the City Council level. The City Council, under the Code of Ordinances, the City Council does have the authority to adopt and amend. They do have that final authority. But just for the Commission's knowledge, the intent was not at all to circumvent the process, but to ensure that the rules that were finally adopted were clear and in accordance with basically some state law provisions, or consistent with some state law provisions and the Missouri City Code, as well as to ensure that there weren't any superfluous specific provisions in the rules. So the intent was not to circumvent the commission at all.
Well, I understand that part. I'm just saying what the mayor had indicated, and that's what it looked like at the time, because that decision to cut that out of there, I would have thought, Joyce said, it would have been back even before we even got the document to approve it back in June, because it was a very simple decision to make, and I have to agree that it really doesn't belong in there. But from my point of view here, I don't think anything no matter what it is, unless there's a national emergency that comes on the spot all of a sudden, life or death, or whatever the case may be, anything that needs to be cut out of our rules, we need to do that ourselves, and we need to have all the data ahead of time in order to do that. And that's not pointing the finger at anybody and saying that that was done purposely, because that's not the case. It's just that from here on out, and again, I was glad to see and hear that the mayor made that comment. And after that was all over of the night, I even got up on the podium up here and made the same comment too, because I thought it was well taken on his part. If a change needs to be made like that, unless it was life and death and it came up after we had approved the thing, then okay, fine. If it needs to be done then okay, if it's a matter that serious. But in that case, that should have been handled with us when we got the document.
Certainly, but there are situations in which documents are changed. For example, the sign ordinance went through, and you mentioned that we've gone through that, or this commission looked at it for about 18 months, but it did go through several revisions even after it left the commission. So there are instances in which, in order to produce a better document, there are some changes that are made.
That's right. But that's the emergency part there. See, when you have something that's that big and that powerful, then yeah, you're going to have other things that are going to come into play. And I think we as a commission can certainly understand that. And of course, 503, did it hurt anything to scratch it out of there? No, it didn't hurt anything to do it. But we need to do it properly and so that everybody understands what's happening. And this is the reason why that I asked Gary here to put this on the agenda for tonight, because any of the commissioners that had heard anything about this, because I was the only one sitting out here, I wanted to make sure that we all understood exactly what had taken place, And again, not to point the fingers at anybody, and I told you that after that meeting of that night, stand right down there, that was not our intent at all, or that was not my intent, certainly not. But, and I made the decision at the time of the night that there wasn't any sense to say, hey, no, we don't want this like this, we got to bring this back through P&Z, because that wasn't necessary to do that. That would have been a ridiculous thing to do. But we just need to make sure that when we get this stuff, it's everything that we need to do, and particularly if it's a simple thing, Now, the sign ordinance, you can't put anything in there because we didn't know at the time that it was going to take 18 months to get to the point that we're at now. Because we started this process back in January of last year. And
well, Ron, just one moment here on the sign ordinance, just so I can put this in. I understand how long it took the sign ordinance, and there was a lot of difference of opinions. What I heard you say was that there were some items in the sign ordinance that you changed. Were those legal matters?
They weren't necessarily, they weren't substantive. It was mostly a lot of form that changed. I can't think of a substantive change that happened between planning and zoning and city council right at this moment. But most of the changes were just in terms of formatting, that sort of thing. But I can't think, right at this minute, I can't think of a major substantive change. But honestly, I would need to kind of go back and look at everything again. But the ordinance was based on minutes, was based on recommendations and motions that came out of the commission. But just in terms of the specific document that you actually saw at the final report, that document was different from the document that City Council saw, although the substance was still the same.
But in this case, and I hear both sides of this, the intent of the signage that the Planning and Zoning Commission put forward was there. You just changed the form. However, in this instance, I'm not sure the time frame in which this deletion occurred, the intent was changed with the removal of Section 503. That's actually the gist of the matter. What we approved was not what they received. And then if there was any negative implications or even positive implications, it wasn't a true reflection of what would move forward. And we do understand the city council has that authority to make those changes, but the perception of what they received could have misled the council as far as what the Planning and Zoning Commission had put forward.
But what they actually received was exactly what you put forward.
Okay.
The recommendation was made during the meeting to strike that section. So they saw the section within the body of the document, and the recommendation was actually made during the meeting to strike that particular section. So they did see what you adopted.
Okay.
We just made that recommendation. For example, vehicle signs, not to take it back to signs again, but vehicle signs, you had a recommendation on vehicle signs. Council determined that it was best to get the input of HOAs. So during the course of the meeting, that provision reverted back to what it was prior to August.
That I understand. That I understand that city council can say, we want a little more input on this for our decision. For our decision.
Interesting.
And so that was done, to get back to our decision. I just get a little worried when we change things that we proposed to city council, because I've been on here a long time. We don't change a lot of things that we submit.
But she's not saying they changed anything.
No.
They put it forward.
They're having to add to it.
No, they asked that it be struck. They sent it as we approved it. And then they said they noticed a mistake. We need to strike this.
Okay.
That's a big difference from changing.
Right.
But you're talking about it in addition to 503.
No.
Or you talking about 503?
503.
Okay. There again, that's exactly what I'm saying. Had this thing been done right, we would have had that opportunity when we passed that document. We would have known that there needs to be a recommendation, and even that would come with,
I got you.
with the
You
item.
would have preferred that it had been delayed so that it could have come back here and they could have told us at that time, or that they got it right at the first shot.
I got you.
Yes.
Correct, and that was my fault for not catching that
Right.
specific provision should have been taken out prior to it reached this board. But I can tell you that moving forward, legal has talked to Gary and Jennifer and planning, and our goal is to provide you with documents in their final form at this level so that when they move forward to city council, there won't be any changes.
There you
So I
go.
can tell you that is
Right.
our goal moving forward.
Okay.
I think we're happy with that.
Yeah.
Do we have any other comments in regards to
Thanks
this?
for clarifying that, everybody.
Let's just,
Are we all straight on this now?
let's let this go.
Okay, everybody? All right. And again, P. Joyce, there's nobody pointing any fingers at anybody, okay? We just need to make sure that what we send forward is what we send, unless there's some reason why there needs to be a change, and maybe that change then needs to come back. And I'm sure if it needs to be, come back, it will. Okay, anything else? Anybody? We're adjourned.
There we go.
That was good.
There's a